Hey everyone, Mike Naso here with this early Friday afternoon update on the tropics. We have quite a bit to cover, so let me get right to it. Here's the latest on Hurricane Fiona as of 11 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time. It was at 35.9 north, 64.2 west, back up to a Category 4. It had weakened slightly to a 3 and 130 miles an hour, still very low pressure, coming in at about 936 millibars. Moving northeast now at 35, it is definitely accelerating as it interacts with that front. And Bermuda, you are under a tropical storm warning. You had winds gusting to Category 3 intensity earlier. It's a very powerful hit, but it is now moving towards areas there of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. And you guys are under the gun and under hurricane warnings because it looks like by tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, Fiona is going to impact you as a very powerful hurricane force cyclone. Here's the satellite imagery, and again, look at how it looks like fall here. It's definitely fall time weather now in areas of the Northeast, and part of that was that cold front that swept through that is helping to pick Fiona up and slam it towards Atlantic Canada. Nevertheless, because of the interaction with that front, despite not being over more tropical conditions, Fiona has strengthened again into a disastrous Category 4 hurricane. You can see evidence of that front even better here with these cool temperatures. The daytime highs here in the Northeast, very, very cool, and definitely a sign of things to come with fall and winter. I wanted to mention the seas and the swells with Hurricane Fiona. Very, very high seas. Waves reported 30, 40, 50 feet high, and all of this is jettisoning on off towards areas of Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada. Is going to be very, very dangerous. Here's the key messages for Fiona. It is expected to affect portions of Atlantic Canada as a powerful hurricane force cyclone tonight and Saturday. Significant impacts, winds, surge, rain, all expected, and that's why we have those hurricane and tropical storm warnings for much of Atlantic Canada. Tropical storm conditions are going to continue a couple more hours in Bermuda, so you guys aren't done yet, but you're getting better. And large swells, as I mentioned, are going to cause life-threatening surf and rip currents across the east coast of the U.S., Bahamas, Bermuda, and Atlantic Canada during the next couple of days. I would stay out of the water. It's going to be very, very nasty. Tropical storm Gaston has also strengthened up to 65 miles per hour, 40.2 north, 29.1 west. It's moving east-southeast at 7, so it's slowing down, but it is impacting the Azores there, and they are under those tropical storm warnings with the expectation that these winds are going to clip them and cause tropical storm conditions in areas of the Azores. It should eventually move towards the west and weaken by midweek way up here in the far reaches of the North Atlantic. There's the satellite imagery. It's trying. It really has tried to become a hurricane a couple of times, but it has not made it yet, and it's not forecast to. There are the islands there of the Azores getting impacted by tropical storm conditions. And this is expected to continue because they are occurring over the western Azores, and that will spread to the central Azores. And Gaston is expected to produce heavy rainfall throughout Saturday, and that could result in landslides and flooding. So if you are in the Azores Islands, be very, very cautious because Gaston is a storm that I don't want to take focus off of just because we have a lot more fish to fry closer to home. And this is the fish we have to fry, and it ain't no fish. This one is not going out to sea. This is Tropical Depression 9 as of 11 a.m. Eastern. It was at 14.2 north, 70.1 west, winds of 35, moving west-northwest at 14, and the forecast has it becoming a tropical storm later today, and then strengthening gradually throughout the weekend, but by Sunday, Monday, becoming a hurricane near the Cayman Islands, then a stronger hurricane over Cuba Tuesday, then a major hurricane hitting the west coast of Florida sometime Wednesday by daybreak. Right now, the forecast has it in the general vicinity of Punta Gorda, Charlotte Harbor, Cape Coral, Fort Myers. But again, anybody in the cone, you need to overlook your hurricane plans right now. I'm sure the governor of the state of Florida will eventually declare a state of emergency, and all of you on the West Coast are well prepared for hurricane impacts. As you're well aware of, you've been struck in the last 10 years or so, 15 years especially. There's the satellite imagery, and again, we have kind of this naked swirl, but remember, Fiona was a naked swirl. That's a sign of a circulation, and the aircraft have been flying out there. Once we get a little more thunderstorm activity, it's still having some shear to deal with, but it's going to move into a better environment, and it will strengthen into a tropical storm. Here are the computer models, and this isn't every single one of them, but this is as of 12 UTC. This is what we're seeing. The Hurricane Center forecast is here. Some of the models want to bring it further west, some further east. We're going to zero in on it as time goes by, but the general thinking is west-northwest, then northwest, then north, which could bring it ashore in western Florida as a serious storm. Here is the GFS model. Now, this is the brand new run as of 12Z. Brings our system into the Gulf as a strong major hurricane. Misses the trough. Ends up milling around here on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Finally coming ashore late Friday, early Saturday in the Big Bend as a much weakened hurricane because it gets left out over the Gulf, sucking in fall air and cooler waters in the northern Gulf. And then this model is the the Icon model, and watch what this does. Brings our system as a very strong hurricane over southwest Florida, stalls, and then heads towards the Carolinas as a stronger storm. So the GFS, the Icon, even the Canadian have kind of trended west or have this stalling thing. So be careful because we're not entirely sure yet. This system's still early on. Is it going to slam right into Florida and move across? Or is it going to move further west and slow down? Is it going to hit Florida and then slow down and do something off the East Coast? We just don't know yet. It's far too early. But the worrisome thing is we should have a strong hurricane. These are the intensity models as of 12 UTC, and most of them make this a very dangerous hurricane, a major hurricane, a Category 3. Some want to go stronger. This one wants to take it close to Category 5. Some remain more in the Category 2. Nevertheless, that's a powerful hurricane. And the longer it mills out in the Gulf, if it is interacting with a front and sucking in dry air, we could hope to weaken it, like the GFS shows, but that's just one model run, and we're not so sure of that. There's the wind shear that you can see still affecting it there from the northeast. Once it pops out south of Jamaica here, very favorable upper-level conditions will prevail, to say nothing of the extreme oceanic heat content. That is high-octane fuel for hurricane development south of Cuba, and we could see development. Now, this storm the track right now from the Hurricane Center is very reminiscent of Charley, Hurricane Charley 2004. Now, that was August 9th through 15th, and that came up as a hurricane south of Jamaica, briefly became a major hurricane as it hit western Cuba, and then absolutely exploded in the Gulf from 110-mile-an-hour Cat 2 to 150-mile-an-hour Cat 4 right before landfall in southwest Florida. And, of course, it made landfall over areas there of Punta Gorda near Charlotte Harbor, just north of Sanibel Island and Cape Coral, as a devastating Category 4 cut across the state, Orlando, and then ended up into the Carolinas. That was Friday the 13th, August 13th. And honestly, if you look at the track right now, the forecast is almost identical to the track Charley took. Now, that's not to say it's going to become a Category 4 hurricane, and that was August. This is late September, but still, if you're in southwest Florida and you remember Charley, that wouldn't be good news at all. I was doing this stuff during Charley. My voice was a lot higher then, but we did track Hurricane Charley on IPR.
The latest visible image of Hurricane Charley has just an unbelievably small, well-defined eye. This thing has really gotten going. We're talking overnight into tomorrow it's going to start heading up towards Florida.
That's the Hurricane Charley retrospective. You could find it here on our YouTube channel. Now, this is interesting. This is a return period for major hurricanes. So what this means is, on average, when should you expect a major hurricane to hit every so many years? Now, this is not precise. This is just for, giggles. But in the area here of southwest Florida, major hurricane, 18 years. And when was Hurricane Charley? 2004, 18 years ago. So that's just a little interesting tidbit there. Rainfall will be a big threat as we start to see the track of the system, especially if it moves slowly after hitting the state. A lot of heavy rain, so it's going to be a drenched week next week in Florida. If you have plans sometime next week, be on the alert because you might have to alter them or change them altogether. The key messages: the depression is expected to produce heavy rain and flash flooding across Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, and that will spread to Jamaica, the Caymans, and Cuba. It is expected to approach Jamaica as a tropical storm Sunday and the Cayman Islands as a hurricane Monday, and we will probably see watches go up for those areas later today or tomorrow. And then the most important, early next week it is forecast to move near or over western Cuba as a strengthening hurricane and then approach the Florida Peninsula at or near major hurricane intensity. That's a Category 3 or higher, with the potential for significant storm surge, hurricane winds, and heavy rainfall. It is too soon to determine the exact magnitude and location of the impacts, but residents in Cuba, the Florida Keys, and the Florida Peninsula need to have their hurricane plan in place and monitor the progress over the weekend and in the early part of next week. I wanted to mention we have another tropical depression far out near Africa, forecast to briefly become a tropical storm and weaken and remain out at sea. There it is on the satellite imagery, looking a bit better organized. I did want to note that it is going to be a race for the next name, because we have a tropical depression here and our tropical depression in the Caribbean. Both are forecast to become tropical storms later today. The next names are Hermine and Ian. And if this one in the Caribbean is going to be a historic major hurricane for Florida, at least historic as far as hurricanes go, any major hurricane in America is historic. We'll see if it's going to be Hermine or Ian, although those I name storms tend to be pretty bad, so those, I'd probably put my money on that, but we'll wait and see. That's trivial. The main impact is that a major hurricane is expected to strike Florida sometime midweek. A major hurricane is headed for Atlantic Canada over the next 24 hours. A tropical storm is impacting the Azores over the next 24 hours. And a tropical depression should impact areas there north of the Cape Verde Islands. A lot to cover. I'm sorry it was such a long update, but as time goes by, especially tomorrow and Sunday, the focus will exclusively shift to our system here in the Caribbean, expected to be a major hurricane landfall in Florida. I'm Mike Nasa with the latest on the tropics. I will talk to you guys later.